All right, I hope everyone here is for physics. Excellent. Let's get started. Hi, my name is Jay Villanueva. I'm a technical product design director at Epic. I've been making games for over 22 years. I shipped the games both big and small in that time. And I want you to know that I play all of your games. And my job at Epic is to make sure that UEFN can make games and that making those games is fun. The agenda today is we're going to have a bit of a crash course in physics, what physics is in UEFN, what you can do with it, what does gameplay look like using physics, and I want to talk about design of physics games. So why is physics important? Well, if you utilize physics as a system, you'll find that it's a new way for your players to interact. It provides delightful responses to everything that they do. It also enables emergent gameplay. And emergent gameplay is key because it'll enable you to engage your players for longer. All of this is provided by a new physics component that we've added to UEFN. It's placeable on Fortnite props. It enables all of the physics settings for you to tune and adjust your props. I'll go over each one of the settings in here in a moment. But first, crash course in physics. There will be a quiz. It will be in the form of all of your games. So I look forward to playing them. All right, Newton's first law. A body in motion stays in motion. I think a lot of people know this one, but just a quick reminder. If you have an object and you push it, I move this with a prop mover, without friction, without something to hit, it's going to continue in motion forever. You can do that in UEFN until you adjust some of the settings. One of those first settings is linear damping. Linear damping reduces an object's linear or straight line velocity over time. It simulates friction or air resistance. It acts in opposition to the direction of motion. So you can slow things down gradually, even if no other forces are acting on it. And here's a demonstration. The blue blimp has dampening of 0.2, the green one of 0.1. As you can see, the blue one begins stopping almost immediately, and the green one a short while after. So this is one way to simulate friction or air resistance. And you'll find it right there on the component. The next is angular damping, which is similar to linear, but it's for rotational movement. The taco on the left has low angular damping, and the sign on the right has high. And you'll see that it slows down and stops, while the one spins for a lot longer. All right, that was the first law. Let's talk about Newton's second law. Force equals mass times acceleration. I promise this is the only math that will be in this presentation, but I'll explain why it's key. We all heard this, we've all seen this, so I'm going to modify the formula a little bit in a second, but force is a push or a pull. Mass is how much stuff a thing has. Acceleration is what you do to get to a velocity. You change acceleration and get to velocity over time. So I'm going to move the formula around. And the reason why is because what you want to do with your objects is you want to accelerate them, you want them moving. And I want you to know that you have two sort of knobs that you can twist to do that are easily movable, which is force. You can always change the force applied to an object, whether through some of the devices or some of the settings. You can also change the mass of the object. So just know that these are the two things that you're going to be messing with in order to get the behavior you want out of your creative props. That's why it's important. Okay. These two trash bins have the same mass, but I want to change how far they go. I want to change their acceleration. So on the component, we have an impulse on hit multiplier. If you change that multiplier, you can change the amount of force that is applied to the object. So on the left, the multiplier is default, 0.1. This is the amount of force that a pickaxe will apply to physics objects. On the right is 5 times. Big difference. Same mass, but different force. Now, the other element is mass. So you can go ahead and override the mass for any object. It's auto-calculated when you populate it, but you can override it and change it. So here are two cars. One is set to a mass of 150 kilograms, and I can barely move it. I overrode the mass on the one on the right to 10. Same force from the pickaxe, send it flying. So change force, change mass. Newton's third law, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. This is fun because this is what you can use in your games to create different types of interactions for players. Chain reactions, complex gameplay, add all the elements you want. So in summary, to move something, you're going to apply forces. That's going to accelerate that object, and that creates a change in velocity. All right, thanks for surviving the crash course. Now let's talk about how we actually do this in UEFN. You can physically simulate any creative prop by adding the prop to your scene, adding the Fort physics component and configuring it, like this. So I'm gonna go and grab a crate. Everyone loves a crate. And then I'm gonna go up and add the component Fort physics. After that, I have all the options available to me. I will enable physical simulation. I'll override the mass. I'll override this one, I think, to 20 or so, 25. I can disable gravity. I can start it not awake. I said it's damping. I want it to slow down a little bit, but I don't want it to rotate very much. I'll leave the impulse. I also want to note that you have constraints. You can set rotation and translation constraints so that your object will only act on one axis or rotate on one axis. But I'm gonna leave them off for now. And that's it, it's configured. Then all I have to do during experimental is push changes. And it looks like this. You can also do this for custom props. If you're not familiar with the workflows, I'm gonna go through it, but it's very similar. You're going to import it, set up the collision for that prop. This is a key step. You're going to then create the prop out of that static mesh, add the prop, add the component, and then configure it. So in this case, I'll be importing a mesh. And then when I'm done importing, I'll open up the editor. And I want to go ahead and clear my collision. It may have come with some collision. Be sure to double check this. For this, I'm going to add simplified sphere collision. And then the details panel, I'm going to scroll all the way down to double check to see which collision I'm using. I want to make sure that I'm not using complex collision as simple on the complexity. Complex collision as simple does not simulate in physics, but every other property should work. I just go with project defaults. Then I create a prop using the editor script. Then I drag that prop in. This one was large, so I'm going to go ahead and scale it down. Then I'm going to add the component and configure it. And then I have it in my game. And it interacts with other physics props I put in my scene. So now I've got props, I've got a ball, I can start making games. But before that, I want to talk about where we are in experimental right now in physics, in terms of movement and interactions. There are some limitations in experimental. Currently, the player that spawns is a physically based character using mover. It is not the same character you get in Battle Royale. This character has some movement modes. It doesn't have everything, but right now it can walk, run, sprint, jump, swim, crouch, and skydive and glide. This character is being built from mover specifically for physics, to facilitate physical interactions. This character will move using physical forces. So that's key in order to actually interact with objects properly. And as far as player interaction itself during experimental, we have colliding and pushing, so you can push with the player's body. We have pickaxe, obviously as I've demonstrated. In experimental, as it stands right now, hit scan weapons also affect physical objects. So this is going to be the assault rifle, the pistol, the shotgun. Projectile weapons, support for projectile weapons and explosives will be coming later. Also, devices. You'll be able to use devices to create gameplay. We've upgraded several devices, and I'll be going over those in a little bit. So let's talk about making physics gameplay. These are the devices that we have upgraded in experimental to function with physics props in one way or another. The barrier device will block them. The air vent will propel them. These devices here apply force and set velocity. So I want to point out here that there are a couple devices that are interesting. The prop mover. The prop mover can be used to animate other props. And when those props interact with physics objects, they'll push them. So you'll be able to do things like create a pinball plunger or create a spinning blender of sorts, and it'll push objects. The next one is the teleporter. We've also upgraded the teleporter to actually move physics props. So I think that counts as applying force, because if you teleport a prop into the air, it will fall. So someone go make a Rube Goldberg machine with all of these pieces. I want to see it. So I say that some of these devices apply force and some of them set velocity. So I want to go over that example and apply what we learned earlier. Applying impulse are devices such as the pinball bumper. This applies an impulse. That takes mass into account. Force equals mass times acceleration. And then other devices, such as the D-launcher. The D-launcher, is a device where you can place players exactly. Well, now you can use it with physics props. And the way the D-launcher does this is by setting the velocity object. This skips the formula entirely. It ignores mass, because you're not accelerating the object. It's just saying, boom, it's going this fast now. Let me demonstrate that. So here's a pinball bumper. I have two soccer balls. The one on the left is more massive than the smaller one on the right. So I'm going to push them into those pinball bumpers, and those bumpers are going to apply the same force. So I hit the small one. Actually sends it quite far. And the larger one, same force, gets a little push. It's more massive, so the same force resulted in a smaller acceleration. Okay, here's the D launcher. Bigger mass on the left, smaller on the right. Which one's going to go further? I heard it. The same? Let's see. The same. Well done. A+. So that was devices. Let's talk about gameplay. So in experimental, you're going to focus really on where objects are to facilitate gameplay. And you're going to do this with events for the volume device. We've added 2 new events, on physics enter and on physics exit. Those are usable by just the event in the editor. We also added verse API as well. So on the device, on physics entered, the equivalent verse event is prop enter event. And when a prop leaves the volume, you also get on physics exit, and the verse event is prop exit event. As you can see in the signature, the creative prop is passed in that verse event. So you'll know which prop entered and exited the volume. Okay, so using everything we've learned, let's make a sports game. I want to make a game where I have a ball. I know how to do that. I have a goal that's going to be a volume device. And then I want to write my game logic. What I'd like to do with this ball is every time that ball gets hit and pushed into a goal, I'm going to score. I'm going to take the ball and I'm going to teleport it out of bounds real quick, then reset the ball and let gameplay resume. So first thing I do is I need to set properties and events in my script. So I'll expose to the editor some of the things that I want. So one of them is the creative prop. I want to know the ball. And then I want to be able to track the two volumes. So I want team A and team B's goal. And then on begin, I want to subscribe to the overlap event, the prop enter event for each goal. And I cite it to two functions. On team A, goal enter, and on team B, goal enter. That's what will handle all of the logic. So let's go over what happens when a ball enters a volume and gets the callback. We're going to handle the enter event, and we want to check what entered. Because in my game, I'm not just going to have soccer balls. I'm actually going to add a bunch of props. So the players, you'll see the gameplay afterwards. I always want to facilitate a lot of physics gameplay and things that are in the scene that will enter the goal. But only thing that counts are the soccer balls. So on the enter, I'm going to check if it's a ball. And we'll go over that function in a moment. If it is a ball, then I'm simply going to tell the HUD to display that the goals occurred, and then I'm going to spawn a function to reset the ball, to move it out of bounds, and then bring it back in. And in my game, I want to introduce another ball after the first score until there are 5 balls in play, because I want this game to be chaos. Okay, check if ball. Takes in a creative prop, and we're going to just create a variable that says, is this a ball or not? That way we can return it at the end of the function. And then we're going to get a tag generator. We're going to find creative objects with tag. So I put verse tags on all the balls, of all the soccer balls, so I know which is which. Then I'm going to go through each ball. So you can't compare creative props yet, but you can compare their translation. So I go through each ball, and I say, I have this ball that entered volume. Where is it? Give me its translation. And I go through each ball, and I ask it, give me your translation. And then I check, is that translation the same as the one that entered? So if I have 5 balls in the scene, and one enters the goal, I'm going to check each one of their translations, and I say, oh, these are in the same spot. It's in the goal. So I have found the ball. However, if the prop that entered doesn't match the location of any of these soccer balls, then it's not a goal. So I say the ball is true, and I return it. Keeping the game going, resetting the ball, I just hard-coded a location where I want the ball to be, for simplicity's sake. I will hide the ball by creating a vector 3 position, and then teleporting a prop. So you can teleport physics props using verse. And you'll see it's wrapped in an if because this is failable. Then I wait 3 seconds, and then I teleport the ball back into play. And the game continues. So the final result is a game that looks like this. What happens a lot in this game is my engineers love to stuff the goal with all these extra props that you can't score. Okay, let's talk about game design. Mechanics, dynamics, aesthetics, one of my favorite subjects. The MDA framework is a paper by Robin Hunicke, Mark LeBlanc, and Robert Zubek. It's one of my favorite frameworks to apply to games. It describes a framework where you as a designer create mechanics. You create the rules of your game. And those result in dynamics and how those rules interact with each other. So mechanics, a bunch of them together create a dynamic. Then you create a bunch of dynamics and you combine them together to create the aesthetics of play. And the aesthetics is the emotional response to those dynamics interacting. So you create the rules, those rules interact together to create the dynamics, and the dynamics create the aesthetics of play. You as a designer start at the top. On one side, defining the mechanics and rules for your game. Your players, when they jump into your game, they see the aesthetics right away. They see the totality of your work. That's how they experience your game. And that's why sometimes you'll see players who will play a game and begin to deconstruct the rules. They want to see what aesthetics you've put together, what dynamics you've put together, and then deconstruct all the way down to your rules. If you understand both sides of this as a game designer, this is a powerful framework to use. I want to talk about aesthetics real quick, just to be clear on what that means. So aesthetics, the emotional response to the game that you've built. Some of the aesthetics of play described in the paper are narrative. That's the emotionally resonant moment where your game has some drama. And it's really awesome to do in multiplayer games as well, because you're usually on voice chat, shouting and yelling at each other. Challenge. This is player self-imposed challenges, or the challenges presented by the game. The game is like an obstacle course. Can I get there? Discovery. Finding a new way to do something, or finding something new in the game. This game is uncharted territory where you explore it. Expression. Expression could be, look what I did. Game is as self-discovery. And submission. Submission is simply, I play this game every night. I like playing this game all the time. A game is a pastime. It's a game I want to engage in. So what does this mean when you're designing your physics games? Well, it's key to note that when I said emergent gameplay, the way you get there is you design the rules, not all of the gameplay. You don't design the solutions. A lot of games that don't use physics, of course, need solutions. I'll take, for example, a tycoon game. Tycoon games currently, they have the solution pre-built in. So with physics, you want players to determine how to solve your game. And you want to treat your spaces like a puzzle. Give them the pieces, give them the tools, and then let them have fun. Let them figure out how to get to it. And you do so by putting your rules together to create different dynamics, create interactions of multiple elements, mix in devices, use action and reaction, Newton's third law. In our soccer game, I added a whole bunch of extra props. Those props interfere with shots. Players now have to take those props into account. And then I didn't imagine this initially when I just built that game, but my engineers at one point, I turned around and they had stuffed the goal full of those props. I couldn't score anymore. So now I had to run over, remove the props so I can score, while in the meantime, they were scoring on me. That's a new dynamic that came out just by changing a few rules. So encourage play through this. So a narrative response will be from a player saying, hey, wasn't it great when this happened? And if they take that story with them, they're more likely to come back and play your game. While they're engaging with your game, the challenge, they'll ask themselves, can I do this? And if they can, that's a great player experience. Again, they'll come back for more. Discovery. That's when players ask, what if we did this? And whether they succeed or fail, they did it together. And it usually results in a pretty good time. Expression. You want them to leave and go with a story that says, hey, wasn't it hilarious when we did this? And submission. I could play this for hours. Everyone here wants that. So make toys in your games. Let your players express themselves. So let's design a simple game to drive this home. My rules are, get the furniture out of the building. You'll be in an apartment, I just want you to get all the furniture out. Leave the building intact. Don't destroy it. Use everything at your disposal to move things. It's going to be a competitive game. And it might look something like this. The player could use the pickaxe to remove furniture. But eventually, they have everything at their disposal, so chain gun makes moving out easier, right? Now, the player wasn't supposed to destroy the building, but it's their choice. You can score them that later. Tell them to come back. but they played their way. And that's where emergence comes from. Players choose how to get there. Players know the rules, and they may break them. Everyone here who's played a physics game knows that you can break the rules. And that things never go as planned for the player. And this is where the magic happens. This is where all those aesthetics of play come up, where players will have a good time and come back to your game. Thank you very much. At this point, we have a mic up front. I'll be taking questions, and we'll go ahead and move to the Q&A.